Well, good evening, everyone. We're so glad you could join us tonight for C3. I'm Pastor Chris. I'm blessed tonight to be joined by Liddy Barlow, and I will introduce Liddy here in a second. I just want to tell you how excited I was. We had our first communion tonight where people could come and receive communion. We were blessed to have a number of people come and join us. It was a great opportunity to see some folks, to be together in the sanctuary and to see what was going on in people's lives and to be able to just see their faces as they receive that Holy Sacrament. So don't forget, every Wednesday at 6, you can join us in the sanctuary for communion. And every Monday through Friday, our chapel is open from 9 in the morning till 7 at night. So you can come in and pray and let God lead you where you would like to go as you enter into a time of spiritual centering with God. And our building is open, and there's some small groups meeting, and there's some things going on. So don't hesitate to come by and drop in and say hello. We're all practicing social distancing, wearing masks, signing in, doing everything we can do to keep everybody safe, using hand sanitizer and all that great stuff. But it's an opportunity for you to get back into church. Also, on Sunday mornings, don't forget that we are still worshiping online. So we are not worshiping in person, but we are worshiping online together. I also want to point out one more event on August the 23rd. We have our back to school blessing. You could come at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock in the parking lot, the south parking lot that overlooks Giant Eagle. All 3 time slots will be exactly the same. It'll be an opportunity for, whether you're a child, a youth, a teacher, a parent, just to receive a blessing before you go back to school. And then we have a special handout, a giveaway, age-appropriate giveaway for everybody involved. So we are so excited for those things that are coming up. And I am super excited tonight to have Liddy Barlow join us. Liddy is the Executive Director of Christian Associates of Southwest Pennsylvania. And before we talk a little bit about her ministry area, just want to give you an opportunity, Liddy, to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, your family, background. So welcome.
Fantastic. Super. Thanks so much for having me, Pastor Chris. It's really great to be here and to be with everybody who's joining online. I am a New Hampshire native, grew up in the Granite State. I am a lifelong member of the United Church of Christ, which is a sister denomination to United Methodists. We're one of those, there's not a lot of United Church of Christ here in Western Pennsylvania, so I usually tell people that we're the church that the Pilgrims from the first Thanksgiving grew up to become.
Nice.
So now I live here in Pittsburgh with my husband Greg, who is a tech entrepreneur, and our 2 kids. Pippa is 10 and Edmund is 7. And we are managing this COVID-19 reality as best we possibly can.
We're all in that boat, right?
Right?
We're all trying to do whatever we can. And as I said, you're the Executive Director or Executive Minister of Christian Associates of Southwest Pennsylvania. They're actually celebrating 50 years
this is
year,
a
right?
major milestone for us.
Absolutely.
50 years of ministry as Christian Associates. Actually, our history as an organization traces all the way back to 1813.
Wow.
We're the successor to many generations of Christian unity work that happened here in Southwest Pennsylvania. And that in 1970, the major transition point was that we became the first ecumenical agency or first Christian unity organization in the United States to welcome Roman Catholics into membership. So we've been trailblazers throughout that time, and it's great to take this opportunity to celebrate what we've accomplished and to look forward to new ways that we can continue bringing diverse Christians together.
So you mentioned ecumenical there and
Sure.
Christian unity.
Yeah.
So how does Christian Associates approach ecumenism, or maybe define ecumenism a little more clearly for everybody that may not know what that big word means?
Absolutely. So for the people who aren't Greek majors out there, the ecumenical literally in Greek refers to like of the household. So when you talk about ecumenical ministry, you're talking about ministry that belongs to the whole household of the church in all of its diversity. So usually when ecumenism refers to the work of making visible the unity that Christians have in Christ. We believe in one church. That's what we say when we say the creed, is that we believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church. But if you look out over the landscape of churches, even in our own neighborhoods, we see tremendous fragmentation. We see churches that are not only different from each other, but that are actively in conflict with one another. And so the purpose of ecumenical ministry is to uncover those similarities that we really do share as disciples of Jesus, and how we can better live out those relationships of love amongst diverse Christians in the world.
And Christ Church has been a partner with Christian Associates
Absolutely.
for a while, and we do a lot of things together. We'll talk a little bit about that going forward, but we have a special connection. Not only is just Christ Church, but it's the United Methodist Church, because someone special to us as United Methodist is also pretty heavily involved with you, right?
Absolutely. So Christian Associates is structured sort of institutionally in that the bishops and executives of our member church bodies, our members are at the regional level, so conferences, dioceses, presbyteries, and synods. Each of their bishops or executives makes up our governing board. And this year, Bishop Cynthia Moore-Kikoy happens to be the president of our Council of Bishops, and so one of the key leaders in Christian Associates. And I am very grateful for her leadership, as I know you are too.
Yeah, we are also. And we've done a lot of stuff together. I know you were here a couple years ago and you spoke for UMW Sunday. Everybody loved your sermon. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. It was great to be able to sit and listen to someone else, and it was wonderful. A couple years ago, there was the tragedy at the Tree of Life Synagogue, and you yourself and Christian Associates kind of were one of the leaders in stepping forth and bringing hope to people in the Pittsburgh area. And by chance, the day after the Tree of Life shooting, we were having an event here called Tolerance is Not Enough.
Right.
And so we were already having an event to bring groups together. We brought in Rabbi Ingbar from Cincinnati to speak about that importance. You were on the panel for that. So, talk a little bit about how it felt for that to be like the first step, and it was already planned.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that event shows so much about what this church has done, about what you've been able to do here in the South Hills, and what we've been able to do as a region over so many decades of interfaith engagement. Our work at Christian Associates focuses on Christian unity, but a central piece of our mission has always been representing the church in interfaith spaces. That if we, as an organization that brings lots of different kinds of Christians together, can be in dialogue with the Jewish community or the Muslim community, then we're not asking our interfaith neighbors to decode the differences among Christians, right? We're not saying, you have to tell the difference between a Presbyterian and a Greek Orthodox in order to be in conversation with us. We can sort of be that ambassador.
Sure.
And so those interfaith relationships have built over many decades, and they have been one-on-one friendship. They have been acts of service that have happened together. They have been opportunities to learn more about each other's faith traditions. And so that event that happened on October 28th, 2018 was just one more in that series of ways that we had already been doing that work. And by laying that groundwork of doing that work in the past means that then when tragedy strikes, we were equipped to serve each other. And to be a voice of comfort and compassion and solidarity with each other in a way that's really hard to do for strangers.
Sure.
So I'm grateful for all of the congregations like yours that have really invested in that interfaith relationship building, because then it matters.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody to realize it's not just what we do at Christ Church or what you do with Christian Associates. There's lots of churches from lots of different denominations that are doing this kind of work and doing it well. And we're all working together to really make a difference. I know one of the things that was new when I came here, I've grown up United Methodist.
Yeah.
So we always celebrated Ash Wednesday as a United Methodist, but we never did the imposition of ashes growing up.
Sure.
So I get to Christ Church and they do the imposition of ashes here. So that was a new thing for me to learn how to do it. And now it's become one of the most meaningful things in my ministry. I look forward to Ash Wednesday. So recently, I've heard about this Ashes on the Fly at Pittsburgh International Airport that goes along with Ash Wednesday here. So tell us a little bit about that, because I'm intrigued.
Okay, so 4 years ago, I was traveling on Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday, like you, I also did not really have Ash Wednesday as a major part of my faith practice growing up as a New England Congregationalist. It was also a very sort of foreign thing to me. My father's family was actually Roman Catholic, so I was a little bit familiar, but I saw it as something that we don't do.
Right.
However, there was a really active ecumenical campus ministry at my college, and so I kind of got more into Ash Wednesday then, and Protestants in general have kind of reclaimed some of these traditions over time. So at this point, observing Ash Wednesday with the imposition of ashes at the start of Lent is really important to my experience of the Lenten season. And so that day that I spent traveling on Ash Wednesday, I couldn't attend an Ash Wednesday worship service. I, left before the one here in Pittsburgh, and by the time I arrived at my final destination, there wasn't one for me to attend there, and I really felt the loss of it. And it occurred to me that I'm in a position to do something about that so that doesn't happen to other people.
Sure.
So I wrote to Pittsburgh International Airport, and I said, hey, I'm an ordained clergy person, and my organization, Christian Associates, actually has a long-standing history with the airport. We used to run an airport chaplaincy ministry back in the day.
Wow.
So kind of drawing a little bit on that history, we asked the airport if we could come impose ashes on, I don't know, at baggage claim or on a sidewalk or something. And they said, sure, come, you can do it in the airport chapel. So we brought our signboard that says Ashes on the Fly. We set it down at the bottom of the escalator that leads up to the chapel on the mezzanine level. And we have, for the last 3 years, imposed ashes individually and prayed with several hundred people each year at the airport.
That's awesome.
It's really fantastic. It's travelers, it's pilots and flight attendants, it's airport maintenance workers and restaurant employees and executives. It's this beautiful cross-section of the airport people. And for me, sitting in what's often a kind of officey bureaucratic job, it is a wonderful one-on-one, person-to-person active ministry to begin the Lenten season, which is really beautiful.
And it's a great example of what it means to actually go into the world.
Yes.
And take Christ into the world, as opposed to just waiting for everybody to come.
And you get to see how much the practice of our rituals really matters to people. People are in tears. Business guys with their travel briefcases are in tears at this ritual. And I remember one year there was a family that was traveling with a teenage kid, and he was a little bit skeptical of the whole thing. And I wound up saying to him, I was like, look, this is the most punk rock thing that Christians do. Like we are putting emblems of death on our foreheads to get face to face with our mortality and our penitence. This is out there.
I bet that caught his attention. Emblem of death on his forehead. There you go. So Christian Associates does all kinds of work. I mean, all kinds of work. And I'm sure it's going to be hard to narrow it down a little bit. But what accomplishments are you most proud of the work that Christian Associates is doing?
Yeah, I think so. So right now, I've been really pleased over these last couple of months of some of the ways that we've been able to continue our ministries in the midst of COVID-19. I think every organization has had to be imaginative and creative at this time. And so I've been really impressed by watching my colleagues in congregations rise to that challenge, and some of the ways that we've reimagined that too. Just to give you one example, we spend a lot of time working on interfaith relationship building with our partners at the Jewish Community Center of Greater Pittsburgh. And usually we have done that face-to-face by inviting people to come to a physical event and participate with us. But at the start of the pandemic, we realized that was not possible. So how could we take that kind of dialogue and exchange of ideas into a virtual space? And so we started a project called SOFA Spirituality, where we interview interfaith spiritual leaders about some aspect of their tradition. Maybe it's a ritual item, maybe it's a kind of a prayer or ritual or a hymn or a theological idea. They tell us a little bit about that. We post that video online, and then we invite people to join us in a real-time Zoom conversation to explore those themes, to talk more about how they happen in other places. And it turns out that you can do some really cool interfaith dialogue from people's individual sofas.
Sure.
Combating some of that spiritual isolation that we might feel in the midst of this COVID moment.
Part of what we're doing to reach people is this C3, where we're bringing people in so people in our congregation can can meet people that we partner with and can hear what's going on in the church and hopefully get something that they can take. And we are live. We're live on multiple platforms. If you've joined us tonight on Facebook, if you want to throw any questions our way, you can put those in the chat on the comments on Facebook. I will see those. I can share those with Liddy as we continue our conversation. So just wanted to point that out, and we appreciate all of you joining us this evening. As we continue to go through COVID, as we continue to deal with the issues of race in our society, the polarization really of things going on in our society. What do you think the biggest challenge is coming up for Christian Associates for ecumenical work in light of everything else that's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a particularly polarized moment in our society, but that we also live in a world that has been divided since the beginnings of America, right? And I think that the racial divides that we see in our communities are also church divides.
Sure.
And so that for us, addressing racism is it's not just a social issue that we take on as a possible means for cooperation with each other. It is essential to the work that we do, that as people who care about the unity of the church, we're also addressing racism. I think that this moment calls us to really recognize the ways that our divides are damaging to our society. You know, the ways that people are talking to and about each other are tremendously hurtful. And I think if we can be advocates for a kind of holy kindness, not a namby-pamby kindness, right, but a ways of really recognizing the created child of God in every other human being. What a tremendous difference it would make to the world if we started from that point in our interactions with other people. And also if we interact with each other from a perspective of curiosity. Sure. And that's been one of the most delightful things for me about my work with Christian Associates is being exposed to my fellow believers who operate out of entirely different cultural locations, worship styles, theological places from me, and getting to discover what we have in common. You know, sometimes that's people that if I had a different job, I might be saying like, oh, well, I'm not like that person. But now my calling is to uncover our common ground, even with people that I might have an immediate like, I don't know about you. We have to dive in. And I think that is my call, not just because of who signs my checks, but also because I'm a baptized follower of Jesus Christ. And that's, I think, what all of us are asked to do.
Well, and I think that's why the faith community can and should be the leader in bringing people together. Yeah. It's not about making people believe what you believe.
Right.
It's about understanding that all people are important. And we can be an example, or should be an example for that. Unfortunately, like you said, sometimes between our denominations, and I can say as a Methodist, sometimes even in our own denomination, there's some of this kind of stuff, which is sad, and we got to kind of work through that. But people are people, whether they're in a church or not. So it's a long process. Right. So the next part of that question maybe would be, if we all agree that the faith communities are going to be the ones that kind of lead the way on this, where do we begin?
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is, now is the time to start where we are. It's to start in our neighborhoods and in our congregations, and to just begin building extravagant bridges wherever we can. And that's one person reaching out to one other person, and then gradually finding ways to work together to build that into a meaningful partnership. Because the kind of bridges that we seek to build between church bodies, you don't get alliances between institutions without first having friendships between individuals. Right. And so I think if we throw ourselves wholeheartedly into befriending as many in our community as we can, I think we'll see healthier communities, and I think we will see more united institutions.
Yeah, and one of the ways to do that is find common ground on something. Now, obviously, hopefully for us, that common ground is Jesus.
Right.
But one of the other common grounds that I think a lot of people agree on, especially we've been dealing with COVID and people out of work, is this idea of food insecurity and people who can't afford to buy food for their kids. And one of the things we've partnered with you on is Bread for the World.
Absolutely. Yep.
So can you share a little bit about that? Because that could be a jumping off point or a bridge that could cause people to come together.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for Bread for the World as an organization, and here locally, Christian Associates has sort of hosted and helped facilitate our Bread for the World team in Southwest Pennsylvania, which Christ Church has been very active in. But so have congregations of a really wide variety of other kinds of congregations, Lutheran and Catholic and Baptist, and the list goes on and on. Bread's work is about working for a world free of hunger through the work of advocacy. And that's sometimes a missing step in the ways that churches can think about many social issues, but especially about hunger, right? I think lots of churches have a pantry or a feeding ministry, and those are so important. But if we aren't also thinking about addressing the reasons why people are hungry, then we're going to have to continue those ministries in perpetuity. People will always be hungry. And so Bread's work is in meeting with our elected officials and shaping the kind of world that we want to see as people of faith. What kinds of hunger policy that would really be just and merciful to everyone in our communities could take place. Bread is an incredibly gentle on-road to activism. Sure. So you have, retired folks who have never, these are not people who are going to be like marching in the streets and turning over cars. They have not done this kind of advocacy typically in the past. Some have for decades, but right. there are those who haven't. And Bread is a great place to learn step by step. How do you write a letter to a congressperson? How do you set up a meeting with a senator's office? What kind of work should that meeting look like? And those are skills that can be nicely honed in the work of Bread and then applied to all kinds of other issues
Sure.
that Christians care about too.
Sure. Christian Associates clearly is doing all kinds of work, and you're doing all kinds of work. And as churches, every church has their ministry area that is kind of their passion, or people within the church have their own passion. But hopefully tonight people are getting an idea that no church can do it all. No organization can do
right.
it all. That's the whole reason we partner. So we have things that we all can focus on, and then we can piggyback with other organizations on the things that they focus on, and together we can really make a big difference in the world. So if you could leave the folks of Christ Church with one thing to think about,
Sure.
or one thing to pray for, or one next step to take, what would you challenge them to do?
Yeah, I would say, I think that, so folks at Christ Church, you have a really great church here at Christ Church. Splendid pastors, dedicated staff, wonderful worship opportunities, youth groups, fellowship groups, everything's great here at Christ Church. I am not telling you to leave Christ Church. What I am telling you to do, especially during this COVID moment when this is more possible than ever before, I invite you to worship with a congregation that is not your own. And I would especially invite you to worship with a congregation that you have driven by 800 times and have never walked through their doors. Log online and find an online worship service to attend, and not just to watch and criticize, and not just to watch and learn from, but find an online worship service where you can worship with Christian believers who are not like you, not United Methodist, different from you in some important and essential way, and then come back to Christ Church and talk to each other about what you discovered. And I think that experience of really getting a window into the diversity of the church can be the start of curiosity and friendship and new creative pathways forward for all of us as we work for the Christian unity.
I think that's a great challenge. And like you said earlier, these big partnerships at high level don't happen if there's not a relationship at the lower level. It starts with a relationship.
Absolutely.
And then you're willing to kind of lean in and start to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way we're going to make a difference in this world. So, Liddy, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your work with Christian Associates. I want to thank you for your passion with your work even outside of Christian Associates, just because you love people and want to just minister to whoever you can minister to. I want to thank you for partnering with us. I look forward to partnering with you for many, many years to come and to continue to make a difference in this region. So thank you for your leadership in this region. Thank you for being a light for Christ to all people, and I look forward to having you back, not only at Christ Church for worship, but for a C3, and who knows what God has in store for us going forward.
Fantastic.
So,
Super.
thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much, Pastor Chris. Thanks, everybody, and great to be here.
Great to have you join us tonight. We will see you on Friday morning for devotions. Have a great night, and God bless.